Time to talk about prospects who we think are going to go off in the second half. You got Aram Leighton, he's Elijah Evans, and some of these players are already hot, so it makes it a little bit easier. Some have been really struggling, and we think they're going to turn it around. But as we enter the second half, even though we're more than halfway through the season, as we hit the second half here, deadline approaching, get past that, we wanted to highlight, I think, the players that maybe haven't been performing to the best of their abilities in the minor leagues. We think they can really get rolling here soon.
Yeah, man, this is fun to talk about because the second half is when you really start to see some prospects just hit their stride fully. In the back half, guys that were injured a little bit, or just guys that weren't quite in their rhythm. And then when you have a big second half, it leads into those conversations next year of like, okay, how high is this guy going to move on our top 100? What does his kind of timeline look like? And those are those big second halves that push guys, and you see guys, especially down the stretch here, a huge month in August into September can lead to a way more aggressive promotion and timeline come next season, right?
Yeah, I love the point that you bring up about the like hitting their stride because it's some
Yeah.
guys it's okay they're going to play most of this year at the same level. It's a challenging level. I think about like Sebastian Walcott, right? Like he's playing, and that's probably another guy that should be thrown into this conversation.
Yeah.
I know we didn't have initially, but I just thought of now as we were talking about this because he was thrown into an extremely aggressive assignment. I think they knew the Rangers that it wasn't going to be easy for him through the beginning of the season. But now over the last few games in Double A as a 19-year-old, he's really starting to settle in. That's usually where it'll happen, right? You get to a couple hundred at bats, you get to the second half, and now you start to settle in a little bit. Or you're a guy that was in Double A, you have that acclimation process from High A, and even if you get promoted to Triple A, it's still a similar adjustment period. And like we'll talk about the password, who did really, really well in double, but he's actually been better in triple. So I think that's a fun thing to monitor. And also, I think it's also the time to look at, okay, should I be really concerned about this player who may be struggling because he's been at this level now for a good amount of time and it hasn't gotten any better. And then, of course, you have so many candidates of just injuries, late start to the year. Then you need a couple weeks or a month or two to get back from that injury, get back into your rhythm. And then you really want to see them finish strong and sprint through the finish line. So a lot of different situations here, but I think a lot that are fun to kind of dive into and see who is going to be that player that or those players that can really hit their stride over the last couple months here. Do we sort it by hitters and pitchers, or are we kind of bouncing around?
We did. We're starting hitters, and then we're going to go into pitchers from there. I mean, we might as well start with Walcott because you
Yeah.
mentioned him, and we didn't have him on our list, but I do think he should have been on because we've talked about it before, man. Like, this is a guy who you look at the baseline numbers and people say, okay, why is this guy a top 10 prospect in baseball? Like, I've heard that from multiple people. But he's 19 years old. He's in double A. And he's coming off a season where, last year, what was very impressive in high A as an 18-year-old. So he's so far ahead of his level and his peers at that level. And it's not like he's getting blown up at all. The strikeout rates are on 20%. He's walking over a 10% clip. He's still putting up above average numbers as a 19-year-old in
Yeah.
double A. When the pitching, especially at that level, is, in where he's played facing is, it's 24-year-old college guys, a lot of
Yep.
the guys he's facing every day, and he's 5 years younger than them. So what is it with Walcott that gives you the confidence that, this is going to be a bigger second half and a guy that could have a major league debut at 20 years old still, despite having, moderate output this season?
Well, he's a young 19 too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at the start of spring training, he was still 18 years old. And I think the fact that like all the things that you mentioned, the archetype of player is important too. This is a power bat, a long levered power bat who is in double A as a 19-year-old and is not striking out 30% of the time. He's striking out nearly 20% of the time. He's managed 21.4 to be exact with a 12% walk rate. Then the underlying data is just super encouraging. A 90th percentile exit velocity of 107 miles per hour. You want to see him get the ball in the air a little bit more consistently, and he's still getting more comfortable with all that. But just to be surviving the way that he is at that level, yes, I want to see that slug creep up a little bit more. It's definitely down a bit, but the fact that the numbers are solid, I think says a lot. And then there was a tough stretch in June that I think
Yeah.
stood out and I think kind of weighed those numbers down. But if you look at the last week or so, he's really starting to heat up. And I think he's a guy that's just getting comfortable here and starting to settle in. He crushed one the other day. It was more like the Sebastian Walcott swing I'm used to seeing, 109-mile-an-hour line drive home run on a pitch like on the inside part on his hands that he just hit on a line right out. And then you're starting to see those top end EVs show up a lot more. So I mean, this guy, he's also trying to prove that he can stick it short. I ultimately think he's a third baseman, but the fact that he's playing shortstop most days too, that's a lot for him to take on. I honestly think that when he starts playing third base more frequently, it might take a little bit of pressure off too, and he's able to focus on the bat. But the fact that he's not punching and he is walking and he's still posting great EVs, if you look at the last 40 games, he's striking out 19% of the time. For a 6'4 teenage power bat in double A, the power is going to come along, the production's going to come along, and the fact that he's doing what he's doing already, even if he doesn't go nuclear the rest of this year, I think it comes next year, but I think he's going to finish this year strong.
Yeah, and even just from a counting stat standpoint, right? It's still 10 home runs. It's only one homer short of his career high last year.
Yeah.
And it's 23 stolen bases too for a guy like you
Oh.
say, the power bat archetype. So like if a Sebastian Walcott is going to get you, at that age and that point, if he finishes the year with 17 homers and 40 stolen bases for a 19-year-old in double A, you got to feel really excited about that, regardless of the, moderate numbers so far.
And it's fascinating because if he does finish this year strong, you look at the third base situation in Texas, all of a sudden Josh Young may not be as solidified of a piece for you for the foreseeable future. Walcott could be a guy that plays his way into midseason call up next year, and I think if he finishes this year strong, could play his way in even earlier than that. But I think that makes more sense. You don't want to rush him too much, and he already is kind of being rushed. But I think it's exciting, and that's why he's a top 10 prospect in the game.
Yeah, definitely. The next guy up is a little bit of a cheat, and it is someone that we've already seen get hot here in the past 2 months. So it's kind of a gimme here, and it's Colt Emerson of the
Yeah.
Mariners organization. Another guy who's, a top 10 type prospect in baseball. And Emerson, since June 1st, I just got the numbers here. Since June 1st, it's a 146 WRC plus. It's a pretty much even walk and strikeout rate, OPSing 940 since the start of June. So he already has heated up, but given how slow he started the season, we kind of always looked at him as like it's a matter of time with this guy, and now that time has already come, and probably is going to keep rolling in this direction.
Yeah, well, and I think it's not a full-fledged cop out, even though he has been that good through this
Yeah,
part of the season, because I think he's going to get to double A. And some people might say, "Oh, that's going to be an acclimation process." I think he keeps running through double A. I think the momentum doesn't slow down at all, and he keeps doing what he's doing there. So that's why I think we can lean on that and say we'll make it a little bit more bold than the other players. It's not him, finishing the year in high A and just continuing to swing it well. I think he sprints through the finish line, even if he gets that promotion to, and I think he will quite soon, to the upper minors, because the contact rates are just phenomenal. And that's what stands out to me, because the power is going to continue to come and the raw power is there. He needs to elevate the ball more consistently, and he has now done that. You look at the first 41 games, 56% ground ball rate, actually 57%. The last 40 games, it's a 45% ground ball rate. That paired with a 90% in zone contact rate, you're going to have a guy that's hitting for some average, starting to slug more, and you're getting kind of a little bit of everything right now. I want to see him cut down on the chase a little bit, but it's one of the smoother swings you're going to see from the left side, and he's coming along so well defensively too. I think he's going to play his way into, by the end of this season, you're going to have some graduations. I think he could be a top 5 prospect in baseball. He's clearly untouchable for the Mariners, who are going to be very aggressive. I think that's your future at shortstop. And it's fun to see him put it all together, because I was a little bit worried at the beginning of the
yeah,
season. When
yeah.
you're putting the ball on the ground at a near 60% clip, we're kind of waiting. We're like, all right, when is it going to finally come together offensively for Emerson? And I think a couple days now after his 20th birthday, he seems like he's really in stride here to put it all together.
Yeah, definitely. He has definitely found it. And like you said, the power is still kind of coming along, but it's already been more than last year, right? 9 home runs now, after only putting up four last year
Wow, it's only
between
4
single A and
last
high
year.
A, right? Exactly. So, it was good. It wasn't like it was, he was still hitting the ball hard last year, but now you're starting to see it in actuality. And like you said, getting that ground ball rate down is huge for him under that 50% mark. And I think he's just going to keep ticking up, and he clearly already has. So, he's still going to be top 10 in the update coming out soon. Yeah.
Especially with because the defense is shortstop too.
Yeah.
That's what's coming around.
Right.
And just to put in perspective, he has 4 home runs in his last 21 games. So I mean, it's a
Yeah.
different level of power output here, and there's still more. The 90th percentile is like 105 plus, and the hard hit rate's still a little bit lower, which tells me he's not getting to it as consistently. I think he's going to start to get to it more and more, but it's a good shot. I mean, I didn't even realize that he wasn't. And I know he's banged up last year, and that's been part of it too. But that there's 25 home run power here if it all
Yeah.
comes together.
for a very good shortstop. So that's a pretty fun profile and understandable why he's ranked as he is. The third guy is our third kind of, we're knocking off all the very top end guys and then the top 10 prospects in baseball here. And then we'll get into a little bit more deeper cut. It's Leo Vries of the Padres. And that's a guy who it's similar type of, thing in conversation there as Walcott, I think is, he's 18 in high A, right? So he's on pretty much the exact trajectory Walcott was where he came into, affiliated ball as a 17-year-old. Now he's up to spending this entire season at 18 years old. In high A, he's not 19 until after the season, so he's 18 this entire season, and it's still been quality output, right? A 115 WRC plus on the year, 7 homers, a number pretty solid numbers, right? 20% strikeout rate, actually very similar numbers when you look at it as a Walcott.
Yeah.
Obviously, a little bit of a different player, but DeVries is another guy who's just extremely young and seems like the more time he spends at the level, it's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, I mean, 18 years old at high A is also a
Yeah.
ridiculously tough challenge, and uh, he'll be 19 right at the end of the season. He's also a little bit of a layup because of the fact that the last 20 games he's got a 910 OPS and he's a top 10 prospect in baseball.
Yeah.
But I still don't think people realize how good this guy can be, and how good the numbers might be down the stretch here. So when you're looking at what he's doing overall, the approach is starting to stand out more and more, walking at a ridiculously high clip over the last few weeks. And then the other thing, last year he was a lot more productive from the right side than the left side, and then this year it's been a lot more productive from the left side, which I actually prefer. Obviously, you want both sides to be great, but I'd rather see that change and then have the right
Yeah.
side come along a little bit further. 815 OPS on the season from the left side versus like a 640 from the right side. But I think that's going to continue to shine through here. He's starting to hit the ball harder too. I think you look at like the first, I want to say like 40 games, it was about a 35% hard hit rate. Now it's creeping closer to 40%. And then you look at the last 20 or so games, it's north of 40%. So you're seeing the EVs tick up. He elevates the ball consistently too. It's like a 34% ground ball rate on the year. So seeing that, the fact that he's that young and high A, and even if the numbers aren't totally there, he's hitting the ball at the right angles. The contact rates are solid. He's a switch hitter at that level, and he's getting better as the year progresses. I don't think he gets pushed to double, but nothing would surprise me with AJ Preller and the Padres. But if he gets to double, maybe the numbers slow a little bit. But if he stays in high A, I think you're going to see him get really hot. We saw it last year too, where he was pretty good, okay, fantastic, then got hurt at the end of the year and then went to the fall league and was, I think, good given his age and everything. I think we're going to see that fantastic again here through July, end of July and August.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you mentioned there just with the contact rate's up like 5% from last year at a higher level while still being a teenager. That's just another note
Yeah,
there on
a
him. It's
switch
like
hitter.
exactly more contact while hitting from both sides while playing shortstop at 18 years old. There's so many factors that go into that difficulty level, and he's taking it in stride and putting up similar numbers to what he was doing last year, right?
Yeah, what's the? He's not stealing a ton of bags though, is he?
No, he's not. Definitely has ticked down 6 stolen bases on the year.
Yeah.
So interesting to see. I mean, you'd like to see a little more from that, but I think he has such a well-rounded offensive profile where you don't need him to be,
No,
a bag stealer for his value, right?
no. I was just curious because I was like, I
Yeah.
felt like I
Yeah,
didn't
not
see him
not
do
running a
that as
ton.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, funny mention here. I'm not going to give the exact list, but it is funny that as of right now, in the top 100 update next week, these three guys we just talked about are stacked one, two, three
I didn't even
in a
realize
row, which
that.
which could change, but I didn't realize that either until recording right now. And I'm looking at the mock list that will possibly change, but we're looking at it now, and it's these three guys are next to each other in a row on the top 100. So that's a pretty cool note there of three pretty elite guys. Moving on to the next guy on the hitting front, Angel Ganoa, I think is how you say
Genao.
it. Do you have a better name? And
Genao.
now I should have known that. That should have been a gimme. But Angel Genao is one that you shouted out and pointed to me. A guy whose numbers, in Double A this season have been moderate, about an average hitter for the Double A level. But a 21-year-old in Double A, and there's a lot to like here. This is a guy you were really high on last year, I think, compared to the consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I was upset seeing him get hurt early in the season. I think he had
Yeah,
like a right shoulder sprain, and I imagine that had to be affecting him some, even just coming back. And it's one of those things where you almost forget that a guy was hurt once he's back for a month or two, and I think he officially made the return on June 6th, and
something like that.
it's
Yeah,
it's a month and a half ago. So he's still getting his feet under him. He had a stretch at the end of June where I think he had like 5 consecutive multi-hit games. Then he only had a one-hit game. Then he had two more multi-hit games. Then he kind of slowed down again. I just think there's a little bit of just the consistency and getting his feet back under him and probably just feeling right and bouncing back. A switch hitter also with a shoulder issue. So it's gonna bother you different ways and different swings where it's gonna if it's the right shoulder, it's that lead shoulder for
Yeah.
your left side. That could bother you on certain swings. And then the other way around, that top hand, you could really feel that from the right side. Um, I loved how he finished the year last year. He really exploded last year. And this year, the thing that stands out the most to me is the impact is down a little bit. It's 89% in zone contact. The swing decisions are great. He's just not hitting the ball as hard. And I do wonder if that's just some residual effects of what he was dealing with. And the further he gets away from that injury, I think the better we're going to see him swing it. I think Genao is still an absolute stud. I love him at shortstop too. And I think it's probably affecting him a little bit there defensively as well,
Yeah.
just being able to throw the ball the same way. But this is a dude that last year, over his final 40 games, hit 335 with an 881 OPS. And I think he's going to do something similar this year for different reasons. Last year it was getting acclimated. This year I think it's a combination of getting healthy and getting acclimated. Because remember, he finished the year at high A last year. So he's coming back from injury and adjusting to double A. So at 21 years old, I think he's going to get both of those things kind of settled in there. And I think we're going to see him sprint through the finish line for a guy that I think is comfortably, and as a case now, as DeLauder is hurt again with a hand thing, you can make the case that he's the best prospect in their system.
Yeah,
Outside,
I
it's
mean that's an
him.
exciting guy.
Bazana,
Him
he's
and
hurt
DeLauder.
too. Like if Hanau finishes a year strong, I think he has a case.
Over Bazana and DeLauder, which is saying a lot. Those are two obviously very talented guys. Do you think this is the guy who could be, playing shortstop for Cleveland next year at some point? Because they're in a spot where, like, I mean, you look at that roster, and you're not loving a lot of the pieces there that you would like to get somebody from the system to replace.
I've always said, like, I think when you look at the switch hitting, contact oriented shortstops they've had in the past, I think they so often have compared them to like Francisco Lindor, and I always think it's silly. Like Brian Roquillo was getting Lindor. It gets silly. This is a guy that actually has, and no one will ever be close to Lindor, but this is a guy that has a skill set that you can at least say, oh, I can see the shades of it, right? Because he actually hits the ball harder than those guys. He looks like he can defend the position well. That's what all those guys have been able to do. But you're also getting a little bit more impact from that left side and from the right side. So I think this is the guy that has more tools across the board that is more deserving of, I think, that exciting dream on type of profile. I don't think anybody's going to be anything close to Lindor, but I do think he's the guy that has the best shot at being their shortstop of the future. If he finishes this year well, next year you start him in AAA and he could be up there, pretty early in the season. I do think he's their future at the position.
Yeah, it's a really fun guy to watch, and I think he's still going to be a top 50 guy for Just Baseball probably heading into this
No
next
doubt.
update easily. The next guy up is a traded prospect, and I always think it's interesting to take it with a grain of salt when a guy gets traded and their numbers are down a little bit, and then give him some time and see what happens when you give him a bit. Yophrey Rodriguez of the Red Sox was the return for that Quinn Priester deal, and as much as the Red Sox are probably kicking themselves for that one a little bit with seeing what Priester's doing. Joffrey in the past, handful of weeks here has really started to get going in the Red Sox system. He's in high A since the beginning of July, rocking a 187 WRC plus, OPSing over 1,000, striking out less than 10% of the time in his last, I think it's about 12 games or so since the start of the month. So this is someone who you were definitely high on
Oh
last
yeah.
year, I think, when he was kind of getting his first showing out a little bit at the single A level, and then this year in high A, still 19 years old, and it started, a little slow for him following that trade, but recently it looks like he's really starting to take off.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think especially when you're going from the Brewers organization to the Red
Yeah.
Sox, where both are very involved in hitting development. I think Red Sox really lean into the bat speed side of things, and not that the Brewers don't, but the Brewers are lean into the mechanic side of things, and there's a lot of different approaches, and I think some work better for certain players. There's an adjustment period to that when you're switching organizations. On top of just the mental aspect of a trade for a 19-year-old prospect as well, and also another guy that is making the adjustment to high A as well as a really young player for the level. And he had finished the year just playing a couple postseason games in high A, and that was about it. So all of those things I think factor in for him to be someone that would take some time to settle in. I think the swing decisions have stood out as really solid. I love that you mentioned just the bat to ball and the lack of strikeouts, and I think that's a calling card for him. You'd like to see him grow into a little bit more impact, and that's where I think the Red Sox can help him with the bat speed program and just continuing to tap into more power there. But the other thing that I like is You mentioned the bat to ball. It hasn't come at the expense of being able to elevate, where the last 25 games, a 37% ground ball rate. So he's a guy that is making a lot of contact, but it's not just slapping it around the yard on the ground. It's elevating. And I think that's allowed him to start to slug a little bit more. It may not be a ton of home runs, but a lot of doubles gap to gap. And I think this is a great shout because you have the contact rates, you have the swing decisions, you have just getting acclimated to a new level and a new team organization, and you have the fact that he's hitting the ball at the right angles. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Yophrey has a nice second half here.
Yeah, definitely. He's already starting to. And, another guy, like we mentioned with Vries, who's making more contact as he goes up a level while still being a teenager. And I think that's one thing I know you look for, and both of us look for when we're looking at these guys is just, are they continuing to make the right decisions as they rise up the ranks and get pushed for their age? And he's definitely someone who's doing so, and particularly the past couple of weeks. But I do think it's a fun player to keep an eye on here and someone who has adjusted really well after that slower start.
And the other thing too is like lefties, and this was a something I noticed in the DSL even. He was like bailing out left on left,
Hmm.
and I mean he has a 498 OPS on the season left on left. If he can just even get to a point where he's semi comfortable there, it's gonna up his overall numbers because he's 750 OPS against righties. So I think the left on left struggles had held him down a little bit, and if he can be a 600 OPS left on left, that's going to inflate the numbers overall too.
Yeah, definitely. The next guy up's another, injury case here, and that's Blake Mitchell of the Royals organization. And this is someone who, it's not about what he's done so far. It's just about the fact that he's healthy and that we think that he has a lot to tap into there. A guy with a ton of raw power, 18 homers last year in his first professional season. Really a lot to dream on. Also some sneaky speed. I did not realize till I looked at that Blake Mitchell
The
stole
athlete.
26 bags last year, as a catcher still, right? 20-year-old in high A, and his first 8 games here have been okay. He's whiffing a lot, obviously, but it's 8 games back at the level. So just someone who is finally healthy, and I think we both think can put together a good second half and head into next year just more established after starting the year hurt.
Another case of not only returning and shaking off the injury, it's doing it at a new level. He played like
Yeah.
5 games at high A last year, and I think he ran out of gas a little bit last season. It's just high school catchers, man. It's a big adjustment, just catching that frequently in the long season and everything. But yes, he's going to swing and miss, and I think. There was one game where he punched like 4 times against Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne, high A for the Padres. They've got some arms over there, to be honest, especially out of the bullpen. So you look at the last like 5 games for him, or last 4 games for him. He's only struck out once in each of the games. He's walked 4 times. He's a hit in each of those contests. Like he's starting to settle in here. And of course, coming off injury, catcher, new level. He's super patient. I think he's that 3 true outcome type of hitter with monster power. And those guys are going to be streaky, and those guys are going to need to get into their flow because it's a lot of deep counts. It's getting your A plus swing off consistently, and you got to feel good to be able to do that. And I think he's going to. And when this guy's hot, man, I mean, he's going to hit a lot of home runs, and I think we're going to see him start to settle in here, draw his walks, run into a lot of homers, and then the question's going to be, does he keep the strikeout rate in check? If the end zone contact rate's north of 70%, he's going to be getting his enough, and I think that's what we'll see. But yeah, we'll have to just see if he can make enough contact overall. I think he will, and it's just getting away from that injury and also getting acclimated to high A.
Yeah, definitely. And I already put out 2 homers and 2 big homers in his first 8 games at that level. If you told me he hits 10 here down the stretch in the next 2 months, like I would not be surprised at all. I do think he's going to be the guy who gets streaky and goes on has a week in the minors where he hits 4 homers. Like that's completely the type of stuff that we expect to see from Blake Mitchell.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, there was this stretch last year where I think he had like 6 and 10,
I think it was
12
partly
games.
against the Kannapolis Cannonballers because I remember one where he just had a series where he hit like 3 in that series, and then he went to the next series and hit a number after that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
I would
right.
not be
I'm looking
surprised at
right
all.
now. It was 11 games between and I think it was with the Kannapolis series dominating it
Yeah,
and then Myrtle Beach.
yeah,
11 games he had 5 home runs in that stretch.
and that's going to happen like
Oh, 12 games
probably
he had
frequent.
6 homers. Yeah. So
That's going to happen from Mitchell. We're going to see one of those this season. I think once he gets a month under his belt of being healthy, I expect one of those little runs where he just hits a ton of homers within a 2 series span.
yep.
Next guy up is an organization we keep talking about. It's the Brewers organization. Cooper Pratt. This is someone who we talked about a little, earlier in the season when we had Brenton on, and then just talking generally about this system. 20-year-old shortstop at that level, and just it keeps getting slightly better. The decisions are very strong from Pratt. He's just very very patient, balanced hitter, and he just continues to look more and more comfortable. Another guy who is young for the level and is not showing it. He hasn't been amazing this season, but I do think he can tick up. And I think you're going to start to see a little bit more production out of him, but also just even more comfort. And I think he'll stay at Double A the rest of the season, right?
Yeah, and then that's a big reason why I think we'll start to settle in. And when Brenton talked about him, this assistant director of player development for the Brewers, he did say he's an all-star here, which is which was a good flag plant. But also they talked about how he's just such an advanced young player, as you alluded to. But the one thing early in the season is so common, and when you're seeing the stuff in Double A, is they felt like he was just a little overzealous, and that's just not who he ultimately is going to be, right? He's a guy that's going to have great control of his at bats, and so you look at the last, I would say like 30 or so games, he has cut that chase rate down significantly. It's like 22% over his last 30 games, and over his last 15, it drops below 20%. With that, the results have kind of been mixed, but I think it's because it's this tangible adjustment of the approach where it's like, okay, I'm seeing more pitches. I'm not as aggressive. It feels different. It feels a little weird. But I think ultimately it's going to bode well for him. So I love him as a guy that's going to finish strong because he's going to get more settled into to double, but also because he's making the necessary adjustment to swing less, control his ABs a little bit more. He's not striking out at all. And I think it's just a matter of getting more quality out of his contact. And I do think that that ultimately comes.
And it's also a reminder that he's in the Southern League, which is, as we know, is the hardest league to hit in minor league baseball. So, it's not a hitter-friendly league, and he still is putting up solid numbers. It's since June 1st to 116 WRC plus, which is up a good amount from his season total. It's also like you said, the swing decisions, man. I mean, he's since that same June 1st mark, so almost a 2 month span now, he's walking at a 15% clip. He's striking out under like around 13%, right? So it just keeps getting better throughout the season. And I do think, once he gets to the end of the year, he's going to really start getting going here in double.
To your point on the Southern League,
Yeah.
do you do you know what the highest slugging percentage by a team is in the Southern League?
It's low. It's definitely low. I'd go like, I don't know, at four, but that sounds maybe like it's four-ish, maybe a little lower.
372,
Wow.
which is
Wow.
the
What team is
Biloxi
that?
Shuckers, because there's a little
That
jet
roster's
stream,
loaded.
and
Yeah.
there's a little jet stream pull side every once in a while that you can just like the ball fly out to.
373. That's crazy low for that being the highest one.
The lowest is
Wow.
312, and
Yeah.
I'll just take you through it real quick. Birmingham is 324. That's
Checks
the
out.
White Sox. Um,
Yep.
the Knoxville Smokies. I'm not used to these new.
Yeah.
330,
Yeah.
330, which is the Cubs. Rocket City is 334, which is the Angels. Montgomery is 337, which is the Rays. Pensacola is 349, and they've got some bats there.
These are good
The
systems too.
Marlins.
These aren't bad systems. Like these are a
No,
lot of good
and
systems.
Chattanooga's 363, and they had Sal Stewart, Hector Rodriguez, all these guys.
Yeah,
It
it's crazy.
is a nightmare to hit there.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's some context on Pratt, and that's another factor of why he should keep getting better and better. And then once he gets to trips like next year, I think he could be even better because the
Yeah.
numbers might tick up just naturally from there.
Yes.
Next guy up, we got two more hitters. Jonny Farmelo is the next one up, and Farmelo is someone that you've always liked. You've definitely been high on, and as someone who also dealt with injuries, he only played about 40 something games last year. Comes back this year. He's only played 15 games so far this season since he was out now again. Is he
Yeah.
on the way back?
He's
I
on the
think he's
way
on the way
back.
back, right?
Yeah, so he came back from the torn ACL and then had a
Right?
rib issue. I think that's what happens a lot of times. These guys, they come back from a lower body or some other injury. They come back and then maybe the oblique wasn't ready or the
Yeah.
ribs weren't ready or whatever. And it's a little bit of a rib issue. They're taking it slow, but it said he's getting pretty close to returning here. The thing is, when he came back from that ACL, he was slugging immediately. Like he was striking out, but I didn't really care about that because
Yeah.
he's speed and like where I was excited about what the power can ultimately be with him. He had 5 home runs in his first 15 games back. He homered in that game where he was hurt, and then we haven't seen him since. This guy is a monstrous power and speed combination when he's healthy. And I think getting back from this rib issue, I think you're going to see him go crazy. He has 15. He had the 15 games in high A, which another guy that came off of injury and had to face a new level and was doing well. And I think now had that time off now to keep thinking about the adjustment, what it was, what he saw in high A. I think he's going to come back and cut down on that K a little bit more and just continue to show off that power that he's got. And I think through the rehab, he added even more strength. And I'm interested to see. But Farmelo is one of my favorite prospects to watch. I think what you're getting in center field defensively, the speed is still there, the power is there, and the field of hit has been good. I think it was just a matter of shaking the rust off while you saw him strike out. The field of hit is way ahead of I think what anybody had expected. It was 87% in zone contact rate last year. He's going to get back to at least 80% range. And if he's there with how hard he's been starting to hit the ball, with how well he elevates, I think it's going to be a really strong finish, barring, any delays health-wise for Farmelo. Another guy that for the Mariners, I think is untouchable.
Yeah, he's just got to get healthy. We got to see this guy healthy because there's so much to like here. When you kind of like, obviously you can't combine seasons, but when you take the good things you saw last year and then combine it with the good things you saw this year in both limited samples and you kind of blend it together, you've got everything you're talking about there, right? Like last year, the approach and the discipline was very good. You saw the speed shine through. This year he comes back, you really start to see the power immediately, but his body wasn't healthy enough to really show that speed and was swinging a little bit too often, right? But I think when you get kind of a fully healthy version of him, if you can blend the things you saw, it's a really well-rounded, fun kind of combination there.
Especially with how he's elevating. I mean, I just
Yeah.
queued it up as you said that since the start of 2024. It's 862 OPS. It's a 24% K rate. It's a 14% walk rate. It's 9 homers. It's 4 triples. It's 12 doubles. It's
Yeah.
34% ground ball rate, like 20 chase. It's all the stuff you want to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, only what, 60 professional games at this point.
Yeah.
So if he
Yeah.
can just get some more games, man, I think this guy next year, I mean, this is a this year projection, but because he's coming off the injury again, I think we're really looking towards like momentum going into next year with the
No
Farmelo.
doubt. He may be, depending on how they want to handle it, may be a great AFL candidate too.
Yeah, that could be a good one to get him some innings, actually. That would make a lot of sense. The last hitter up is someone who we just did a video on, so make sure you go check out Aram's video breakdown. Jhostynxton Garcia, the password. I don't even know if I got the name right, but I know I got the password right because it is my favorite nickname in all of minor
It's
league
up there.
baseball. It really doesn't get better. I think there might be a couple that are up there with it, but Garcia is someone that we just did a video on and you kind of did a deep dive into it. And then, of course, right before we had him on this list already, and then right before we record last night, he hits 2 bombs.
Yeah.
One of them was just ridiculous. You put it out on Twitter, and it was just a crazy swing. I mean the kind of just the pop off the bat that he has sometimes on some of his home runs is ridiculous. And he's been really good. He got to AAA. He's still 22 years old, reaching the AAA level, and has been even better at that level than he
That's
was
the
in
crazy
Double
part.
A. A 129 WRC plus since getting to that level, and just continues to rake. And then out of the break, looks as good as he has all season.
Well, and the second home run on a slider that he just demolished pull side. The ability to hit balls hard to the pull side is what's really stood out to me. And as it broke down in that video, um, just continues to destroy spin. 856 OPS against breaking balls this year. And then you pair that with the fact that he also is the bat speed stands out and he's on time for velocity. He's just tough to get out. He's hitting
Yeah.
380 with an 1176 OPS against 94 plus this year. And then you've got the 850-ish OPS against spin. He's going to swing and miss here and there just because it's that kind of grooved swing for pull side lift. But it's a 90th percentile exit velocity of 107 miles per hour, which is plus plus. And then, especially for his age. And then it's a 42% ground ball rate and a guy that really air pulls well. And we always see the correlation between uptick in air pull and just game power. And that's why he's got 14 homers, 3 triples, and 11 doubles. I think the fact that what are the exact numbers? It was what, like a 122 WRC plus in double A and then
It's yeah,
or
119 in double and then a 129 in triple. The
that's the
OPS
part
has
that
gone
stands
up.
out to me.
The slug has gone up a lot too. That's the biggest thing. The slug jumps from a 393 in double A to a 512 now since getting to triple A.
And so like yes, he's a little bit of a cop out because he's been better since getting to AAA. But I honestly
Yeah.
think this is a guy that through the rest of the season here might be one of the more productive hitters in minor league baseball because you see him get more comfortable as the zone gets a little bit tighter and the pitching was more advanced. And a lot of guys I've talked to have said AAA has been a huge adjustment for them in a lot of ways, especially the younger guys, the younger power guys, Owen Casey, Carson Williams. Those guys have all said like, oh, yeah, it's a big adjustment, not to the stuff, stuff might even be better in double. It's just the execution and the way that they're pitching to me and the fact that you don't get nearly as many mistakes and all that stuff. And I thought that would be something that may affect a guy like Garcia, who's a little bit more raw and was a little bit more free swinging. And I thought that would affect him a little bit more, and it hasn't. If anything, it's allowed him to lock in even more and focus more on the approach, and it's really translated. And to see him kick it into another gear in AAA was honestly not what I expected. And I think that's what has me even more bullish on him. And with more reps in AAA, I think, and it's not like he's trying to force the Red Sox hand for a call
Yeah.
up. He can just really settle in there, continue to build at 22 years old. And I think he's going to continue to play free. The defense has come along in center field. I think he's going to potentially push that OPS over 900 through the rest of the season.
Yeah, and he just can keep mashing, right? Like you said, he doesn't need to push the agenda to Boston. He's still 22 years old. Then you have a situation in the offseason where it's like, what does Boston do with him? They have so many outfielders, but it doesn't even matter. Let him finish the season. Just keep mashing, and then you can see where it goes from there. Garcia is partnered with our friends at Finley. Let's talk a little bit about Finley. It is a platform, a website that allows you to invest in the future earnings of Major League Baseball players. What is your kind of take on the coolness of what's going on over at Finley?
Yeah, it was fun to make that video too.
Yeah.
Like the breakdown of the password, and then explain how Finley can fit into that. And what's cool is it's an upfront payment system from like a future earnings contract that allows athletes to invest in themselves. And what's cool is you can then invest in the players. So the funds that you invest can go straight to the players and helps them with maybe better training facilities, hire top coaches, improve their nutrition, focus on their development, and without really the distraction of financial worries. Because while they have improved minor league pay, it's still, as Jhostynxton said in the statement for Finley, like salary is about $36,000. So for guys that are really trying to make that push to the big leagues, this is an opportunity for them to be able to kind of invest into what they're doing, get everything that they need, and live a little bit more comfortably. Maybe support their family, whatever it may be, however they want to allocate those funds. And the fun part of it too, from a fan perspective, is you can invest in the players that you really believe in, and it's not just sending that money that way. You can, if you really believe in that player and you're listening to us break some of these guys down, you can really make an ROI on it as well. So, for example, they pay out annual dividends. So investors are entitled to 2 annual payouts based on the athlete's pre-tax on-field professional baseball earnings at the major league level. So if you invest $1,000 for round numbers in the password, and his career earnings are 50 million, you would make a 3.3x return on your investment. Let's say he makes 300 million, you would nearly 20x your investment. But as he works towards that, you're getting those annual payouts as well. And then there's other giveaways and stuff like that too, depending on your investment amount, signed balls, meet and greets, whatever it may be with the players. And they're continuing to add players on there. They already have a good list of prospects, and I know there's going to be more and more coming in. But the password was the one I really wanted to highlight because, one, this was before we put that video out, before he just did what he did. But he's a guy that's knocking on the door of the big leagues. He's a guy that, even you read his statement about like how he wants to use the money to potentially be able to help further his training and everything that he's doing to make that final push to the big leagues and get comfortable, and potentially be able to be that all-star at the big league level. But also, he is, I think, one of the more exciting kind of fanfare type of players too. I don't know what the Red Sox are going to do. We were talking about like Joe Ryan and stuff like that on the Just Baseball
Yeah.
show, but he's either going to be a guy that forces his way into the Boston situation, or he's going to be one of the best trade chips on the market that would almost immediately be ready to plug in for a big league team that would be acquiring him. So still just 22 years old. So you talk about a career earnings perspective too. He's going to be a guy that debuts at 23 and, is going to have a lot of runway there to accumulate those career earnings.
Yeah, there's a lot to love there. I think it's such a cool platform and a cool way to just feel involved with the development of these players and also just help them have the resources they need to develop in a positive direction. If you're interested in checking out Finley, you can go to finley.co/justbaseball and check out the password in addition to the other athletes on that platform.
On to the pitchers.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into the pitching front. These are some fun guys, and this is where I think these are names we've been on for a while, but some guys that necessarily haven't done quite what we've expected. Some that have been really good, and we just think can be better, and then some who have struggled that we think will definitely take a step forward. Starting with Brody Hopkins, he's an example of of that first thing I said. The former has been good and might be even better. That thing with Hopkins is it's nasty stuff. He's still limiting, it's a 3.32 ERA at the double A level, and he's striking out a ton of guys, but he's still walking a lot of guys. And he's still kind of the command hasn't quite taken that next step. I think if he remains in double A, and that's a big question there because he is a 23-year-old pitcher, the Rays could bump him up. But given how much pitching depth they have, if the Rays keep a Hopkins at double A, I think you're going to start to see the command take a step forward and him dominate even more than he has this season.
He's a guy that I just, the it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
Edward Cabrera, like what's really quick for him is just throwing his stuff down the middle and knowing that it's all going to work in different directions and it's going to be nasty. I think that's something with Brody Hopkins where it's going to click at some point where I'm just going to tunnel into one location with he has an assortment of pitches, right? It's a four
Yeah.
seamer, it's a cutter, it's a curveball, it's a changeup, even a slider. And some of them, it seems like one or two of them each start is just not there totally. The fastball average is 97, and it's crazy characteristics too from an extremely low release. I think they keep him in double because while he is 23, he is young in pitcher years. As a guy that barely threw in college, was a two-way player, kind of almost skewed more towards the outfield side. Uh, and the strike rate, like it would be even tougher for him in AAA. So thinking that he's going to finish in double, I think he's going to get hot. This is not a cop out one for us because his last start was his worst of the year.
Right.
So before that, he was putting together some really good ones. But I think this is a guy that once it clicks, it doesn't even need to be average command. If it's 40 grade command, I'm not comparing him to Jacob Mizrowski, but it's really weird and really nasty. And if it's anywhere remotely around the zone, he's going to be really good. And we saw with Mizrowski, it's not he's not throwing, he's not dotting. He's just throwing enough strikes now. And I think Brody Hopkins
Yeah.
is not going to be that level, but if he's just throwing strikes, not even dotting, just throwing strikes, he's going to be nasty. He's going to be a middle rotation arm. So I love the shout. It's just going to come down to can that strike rate go from 62% to 65%? And something like that could be all the difference
Right.
he needs.
Right. And that's the difference of walking. Right now, he's walking almost 5 per 9. If it's 4 per 9, even, I think that's a massive jump for a guy like that, where the stuff is so good that he can be a legit mid rotation arm if it takes that next kind of jump in command.
No doubt.
Brandon Sproat, and this one is definitely a cop out in
Yeah.
this category because the last few starts have been insane for Brandon Sproat. This is the guy who was flying to the system last year. It looked like he was kind of on that trajectory to just jump into the upper tier of pitching prospects in baseball. Struggled a little bit at the end last year, and then has had a really rough first couple months of the season. Last four starts for Sproat, not a single run allowed, so not a single earned run allowed at least. Across his last four starts, it's I believe 20, what is that, 11, and it's 23 innings across four starts of just pretty lights out performance from him. Not a run allowed in those four starts, only 8 hits allowed. And then, the walks have come down as well. He had 3 walks in that first of those four, but then only 1 walk in the subsequent 3 starts. Sproat is looking more like the pitcher that we saw last year, right?
Yeah, something's really clicked for him. And I'm trying to look at like the data of like anything that's
Yeah.
shifted very obviously. He's getting more vert on the four seamer again, which I think is definitely helping. And he's been throwing it a little bit harder. It was interesting. 'Cause I was like, man, this guy has crazy stuff. Why is he not missing bats? He really wasn't through the first half of this year. But then all of a sudden, in the last few, it just seems like something has clicked for him. He's got the four seamer working at the top. He's got the sinker still going, and then that power changeup's back. And that was the pitch that I loved because it was like it was the closest thing that we've seen, and there's nothing that close to that like Paul Skeens splinker that he had going on. But through the first 10 starts of the year, he was landing that changeup for a strike just 51% of the time, and it just wasn't performing well at all. And then you look at the last 5 starts, that changeup has been fantastic, and he's been throwing it way more. Opponents are 1 for 14 with 6 strikeouts against it. It's a 25% swinging strike rate and a strike rate overall of nearly 60%. So whatever clicked there for him with that pitch, he found it again. I don't know exactly what that was, but it's nice to see him find that again. And then you're just seeing kind of everything else improve off of that. I think the confidence in that pitch was super helpful. And then I think just getting more confidence in the four seamer again, but I also think just commanding the sinker more effectively again as well. It just seems like something clicked command wise, and then the pitch that stands out the most individually to me is that changeup that has come along, but also the sweeper. Like that one had backed up on him too through the first 10, 11 starts. He was giving up a lot of damage against it. And then recently, it has been that swing and miss pitch again. So something clicked. I don't know what it is exactly. I'd love to hear more about it, but he's back to that guy that for us was not that long ago, one of the top pitching prospects in the game. I wasn't ready to quite drop him out of the top 100, but he was 100 last time.
Yeah.
He's
And
climbing back up.
for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like he is using the curveball a lot more, which is interesting because before those handful of starts and he was
Yeah,
struggling,
he wasn't
it
even
looks like
throwing it.
he's barely throwing the curveball, and now it's been kind of his one of his second, about his second most used pitch with the changeup kind of in complementary form.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Like literally wasn't throwing it and wasn't getting much
Yeah.
out of it. And over his last 9 starts, even, I mean, it's a 65% strike rate on that curveball. So something click command wise and then
And
usage
Arsenal
using
wise
that
too, yeah.
curveball. And I mean, that's what the Mets do. That's what this
And
David Stern's organization now does.
yep, and even the changeup, it wasn't as good, but he's used it even more now since he's leaned into it more, and it's been better too. So the combination of that, I think, has led to just really good success here. And I think, I don't think the Mets are planning on him being a part of the rotation, but if you need him down the stretch, he could be an option here and a few more good starts under his belt.
Well, when the strike rate's up that much, I mean, he was walking guys early, right? But the last 4 starts, it's 27 strikeouts, it's 6 walks. I mean, he was walking like 12% of batters before that. So
Yeah.
it's definitely encouraging.
Definitely. The next guy is someone that you look at the numbers and I just don't get it, man. George Klassen is
Yeah.
so nasty of the Angels organization. He was traded last year from the Phillies over to the Angels. It's a 5.86 ERA, but the FIP is at 3.6. The
Mhm.
strikeout rate is incredibly high. He's striking out nearly 30% of batters at Double A this season. The walk rate is not great, but it's not egregious either. It's a little over 10% this season. This stuff is just so good, and it just hasn't come together results wise for Klassen, but it has been a little better of late. He's coming off of maybe his best start of the season, or one of his best starts of the season last week when he went 5 2/3, only allowing 1 hit, no runs, 7 strikeouts. So it's coming together. And the start before that was 5 innings of 1 run ball with 9 strikeouts. So the last two starts have been a big improvement. But with Klassen, like I just feel like he's so due for just a stretch of like a month of dominance because his stuff is that good.
Yeah, I mean the whiff rates are really strong. I mean, you like to see the strike rate a little bit higher, but it's not egregious. The
Yeah.
whiff rates being so strong and the chase rates being so strong, it's surprising that he's been this bad. I think some of it has probably been a little bit of bad luck. I think some of it has been execution, maybe not being as good when runners are on base and getting a little bit more comfortable in that regard. But yeah, the underlying is just way too good. And the stuff, just watch this guy throw. He's disgusting. It really just
Yeah.
is, I think, a matter of larger sample. He'll settle in a little bit more. It's not like a ton of damage has been doing. I was like, oh, maybe he's given up a lot of home runs. 6 and 15 starts is fine. He did take a comebacker off the head. You do wonder if that maybe affected him a little bit too. It definitely didn't help. I can guarantee that. So
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I wish I could put like a very clear
Yeah.
explanation there, but the number one thing that stands out to me was just he became terrible with runners on, and I think that had to be
Hmm.
something that has shifted with runners on. He was opponents were hitting 350, so I think something was off there. And then when you look at the last 5 starts, opponents are hitting last 6 starts, opponents are hitting 233 with men on.
Hmm.
So something about holding runners on, something in that position, I think was really holding him back. And now it seems like he's a lot better in those types of situations. Stuff's too good.
Yeah, it could just be something with literally pitching out of the stretch and just having something feel wise that's just a little off, and now he's kind of figured that out. But yeah, like you said, just way too good to not be a guy who has better results, and we're already seeing in his last two starts. That slider is insane, man. I mean, the Futures game one, he threw a 93 mile an hour slider at the Futures game that was just like it was gross, and it's really even plane. It's kind of close to that 0-0 in terms of the induced vertical and the horizontal on the
Yeah, it's
slider.
just
It's
disgusting.
disgusting, man. It's really gross. And he topped at 99 in the Futures game. I remember seeing that on the gun. So I mean, it's way too good, and he's gonna get going here, and he already is kind of right.
I'm with you.
Next guy up is someone I can't say I'm super familiar with, and I just started looking into him because you put him on my radar. Kendry Rojas of
Yeah.
the Blue Jays organization, someone who you said might be a sneaky top 100, and has only thrown a little over 30 or so innings this season. Tell me about Kendry Rojas.
So he missed some time to start the year with it
Yeah.
wasn't an arm issue, but I saw him in the futures game, and so I loved Rojas as a high floor lefty, back end of the rotation guy was kind of what I imagine. Just a little bit of funkiness to him. Could be that innings eater back end type. Fastball was averaging 93, good slider, decent split. Then in that futures game, and I know it was just a 2 inning spurt, but he was touching 98, and I'm like, this guy was not never touching 98. So clearly he's 22 years old. Like something clicked there. He was very wiry, so looked a little bit stronger. And I'm like, well, if this guy's even just sitting in the mid 90s, that kind of changes everything. I like the fastball characteristics, so that at that velocity would be a game changer. The injury kind of delayed it. So I've been so eager to see him come back to see if that velocity holds. First two rehab outings, he just goes 2 and 3 innings, but he's sitting 95.5. I'm like, okay. And then now he's back in double A, and the fastball's averaging 95 over a 75 pitch sample. And that's 3 straight outings. If he's doing that from the left side, the command has always been there.
Yeah.
I love the shape from the left side as well. And then you've got that splitter and the slider, which are all going to play up off of that. The Blue Jays all of a sudden are developing arms. It's
Yeah.
happening. And he looks
Dude,
like the latest example. With him at that velocity, I think Rojas is going to be nasty, nasty, nasty. I think he's a consensus top 100 prospect, if not by the end of this year, by the start of next one.
wow.
And I think he's gonna shove his way through the rest of the season at Double A.
Yeah, I mean the last two starts at Double A were 10 strikeouts in 5 innings and then 8 strikeouts in 4 2/3. Only one run allowed between those two games. I need to look into him more because I pulled up the video when you mentioned his name and I was like, okay, this is gross. From like you said, from the left side with that velo. If those secondaries are average or plus two with that kind of fastball from that spot, that's a really fun profile. And I we have a guy later on the list who's a Blue Jay, but I just moved him up because, like you said. Blue Jays pitching, farm system is sneaky looking really, really good this season.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They've figured something out. And I mean, the last thing I'll say on him is like he's getting slightly above average extension, maybe closer to above average extension. It's an average release height, and then he's getting like 17, 18 inches of vert on a lot of the fastballs. So now at 95, I mean that's a plus, borderline plus heater from the left side. So it's slight crossfire delivery too. It's everything I love out of a lefty, really a pitcher in general.
Yeah.
So I've picked him up in all my dynasty leagues.
There you go. Juaron Watts-Brown jumping into another Blue Jays arm. I mean, when we've talked about Trey Savage and we've talked about Carl Steffen both recently on our Heat Sheet episodes because they've been great. And now we're talking two more pitchers in this organization that have also been very good. Juaron Watts-Brown this season is someone who I think has been good and like we said with a couple other guys, I still think can be a lot better. It's a 3.83 ERA at the Double A level since getting promoted from High A earlier in the season. When he was in High A, he was striking out almost 15 batters per nine. The strikeout rate was nearly 40% in high A. It was clear he was just too good for that level. Gets to double A, and the strikeout rate's only at about 23.7. I think that the secondaries, especially the breaking balls for him, are good enough that that number will go back up as he settles into double A. And he's walking a lot more guys at that level as well than he was kind of prior. So for me, like he hasn't been bad by any means at the double A level, but I think he can be a lot better based on what we saw early in the season at the high A level.
Yeah, I think he's been nibbling a little bit, and I get it because the fastball is not great, but the breaking balls are so good that it's just okay. Trusting that the fastball can be good enough off of those breaking balls. He's introduced the splitter a couple times to start, and it just hasn't really been there. So I think you kind of push that one aside. But the breaking balls are really good. In the last couple of outings at Double A, they've been a lot better and more reliable. The slider is, I think, one of the better sliders in the
Yeah.
system. It's a really good pitch. So it's a matter of being able to mask that fastball, but he's not even really giving himself a chance to because he's falling behind. So I think as he gets more confident in landing those breaking balls, I definitely think he's a guy that can finish strong. And I mean, the results have definitely been there, and he's just got to get acclimated. My only concern would be if the breaking balls don't play quite as well at the upper levels now. Then it's going to be hard. But I still think that they both have they're very different. They're distinct breaking balls, and I think that they're good enough to play quite well.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I just realized as I'm saying this and going through this that all four of those arms I mentioned are in the same rotation. It is not fun to face the New Hampshire Fisher Cats right now. That would
No,
be a brutal week of minor league baseball for any team facing those pitchers.
which is crazy because I think they're like 20th in starting pitcher ERA, but now that all of those guys are there, in Double A, now all those
Right.
guys are there, like they're gonna really start to shove. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty electric rotation there. Next up is Luis Morales of the Oakland, or pardon me, not Oakland, of the Athletics organization. And Luis Morales is someone who, was dominating Double A, gets to Triple A, has a little bit of ups and downs. It's PCL stuff too. Like we don't put a ton of stock sometimes in some pitcher results there. But Luis Morales, interesting enough, is pitching in these short spurts now. Do you know if there kind of is it an innings limit thing, or is it more like he could be moving to the bullpen? Because what I did notice with this was his last two outings have been 1 inning spurts out of the break so far. So I'm curious if it's just a move to the bullpen, maybe for the short term sake. I just think Luis Morales is a good pitcher, and I think he's going to be better than he's been at AAA. That's why I think he's going to have the stronger second half here. But I am curious to see what the role looks like for him because it's been out of the bullpen now for a number of outings for him.
Yeah, I think it is an innings management thing. His career high was 81 last year, and he's at 84 and a third already this year, and they may want him to throw a little bit in the big leagues. I think if they let him go right the rest of the year, I do think he's a prime candidate to finish strong as he gets more comfortable. Like the command definitely took a big step forward. He had walked 15 and 42 and a thirds in Double A, and as it goes for most pitchers, especially in the PCL, as they feel the need to nibble, he walked 20 and 42 innings. And so I think
Yeah.
they're just getting used to that. I think the stuff is in terms of pitch mix, it's as good as any arm you're going to find in the upper minors, where it's 97 with ride, disgusting slider, great curveball, and a changeup that hasn't been there for him this year, but is a pitch that has looked good in the past. I think stuff wise at 22 years old, there's a lot to like. And I think as they kind of temper the innings down, he looks, I mean, when you look at what he's been doing in those 1 to 2 inning spurts, he's like ticked up to 98, 99. So it's not like he looks like he needs the reprieve. It's more of
Yeah.
probably just them wanting to take care of him. But with that reprieve, then coming back, I assume they stretch him back out to sprint through the finish line. I think he could absolutely dominate if they give him the chance to, because then that fastball might be sitting 97, 98 because he's feeling
Yeah.
fresh again. So if that's the case, hopefully that gives him more confidence to fill up the zone. But you're talking about three potentially plus pitches here with the fastball, slider, and curveball.
Yeah, it's an exciting mix, and I think he's going to be a good big league pitcher. It might not quite come till next year, but that's not a bad thing. And I hope that at least however they choose to manage his innings, to keep him healthy and keep him ready to go for 2026 is important
Yeah,
for that team who needs pitching going into
yeah,
next season,
he's
right?
he's still a big part of that future.
Yeah, for sure. The next guy up, we checked in on Cam Caminiti of the Braves organization when we were doing our 2024 draft check-in. And this is someone who, he dealt with the injury. He had a slow start to the season. He rehabbed at the complex for a while, and then he gets to single A, and it hasn't been great so far. But the general look of Caminiti, the stuff, just the overall ability for him gives all indication that, now that he's, 6 starts under his belt in single A and fully healthy, he should have some of those starts here in August and September where it's like, okay, this is the guy who was an undervalued, first round pick last year.
Yeah, shaking some of the just the I think was it
Yeah.
elbow issue to start the year.
Yeah, I think it was maybe shoulder, it was something arm, yeah, but it
Something,
was
but
minor. But yeah.
he's filling up the zone with the fastball, and then the splitter is gross. So you've got an 18-year-old lefty, 6'3", crossfire, with good characteristics on the fastball, and the splitter working off of that. I think he's going to be dominant in low A, and they're going to keep him there probably. So assuming even at high A, I think that's going to play. But fastball's sitting 93, touching 5, and they're starting to stretch him out now, and he's throwing strikes. And to have that fastball splitter combination, the slider's been solid too as a third pitch. To have a quality 3 pitch mix already and establishing the heater at the lower levels as a lefty, I think Caminiti is going to finish the year really strong as he gets confident and healthy. And he's also still getting ground balls too. It's a 52% ground ball rate. So
Yeah.
I really like what I've seen from him. And I think even if it doesn't fully happen this year, he's going to have a big year next year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I put him on more as like the predictive one where I think we're going to see spurts of it this year, and then you'll see the real full
Oh yeah,
experience of Caminiti next year for sure.
especially in that organization, they do a great job.
Yeah, they're going to kill it with him. And reminder that he was a 17-year-old draft pick. He was
Yeah,
drafted at like 17, 10 months or something like
he
that, right?
doesn't
So he's
turn
still 18
19.
now.
He
He's not
doesn't
even
turn
19 till
19 for
next
another few
month.
weeks.
Yeah, so he's super young, and there's so much to like there as he fully gets settled in here to the minors. Last guy to finish up on is Marlins organization, and that's Thomas White.
Mhm.
Thomas White has been good, and another example of a guy who has definitely been good. But I do think he can be even better. And this, coming off of two starts that have been a little shakier, his last two outings, just the command has drifted a little bit at times for him. But I think with Thomas White, it's more about just the continuing to find that command, finding his zone, right? He's also, a 20-year-old in double A, right? So still very young for his level and is still completely holding his own, more than holding his own, and can be even better.
I love this shout because I mean, it's he added another pitch ahead of this year,
Yeah.
and we were talking to Bill Heasel, Marlins director of pitching, and he was saying just they're trying to just get Thomas to trust his stuff a little bit more and fill up the zone because it's so damn good. And I mean, it's a four pitch mix that I think is as good as you're going to get from just about any pitcher from the left side in minor league baseball. The fastball averages 96 miles an hour with life, and it's tough to pick up out of his hand with that long arm action. The challenge is it's only a 61% strike rate on it because of the long arm action. But then the slider is, and that's probably his most consistent pitch. He's throwing actually the least. That pitch has been dominant this season at about 12%
Mm.
usage, but swing and miss wise has totally been there. He just tends to hang it here and there. And the changeup, I think, is long term his best pitch. And then he's added this curveball that he's throwing pretty consistently. Has been all of them are generating plus swing and miss numbers. So you have that four pitch mix there, and it's 96 on the fastball, 83 on the curveball, 88 on the changeup, 86 on the slider. You have all these different velocities, shapes, and looks too. As long as the command is fringy, this guy's going to be nasty. Just right now, the command is
Yeah.
below average. And I think he's going to get more confident. I think the Marlins have done a good job of helping their guys throw more strikes, Edward Cabrera being the latest example of that, too. And as he gets more confident and just kind of split in the middle of the plate with the four pitches, I think you're going to see this guy turn into one of the better left-handed pitching prospects in baseball.
And what's crazy is he's already been one of the better in terms of just pure results, right? Like you look at the 2.88 ERA between high A and double A this season, and you still see so much room for him
Yep.
to get even better because
Good point.
because the walk rate will come down because the pitch mix is so deep, right? The slider, I was watching videos earlier, the slider is disgusting. All of the pitches are good, right? Like you said. So there's still room for him to grow there, and the results through 50 innings are already good. So that's another guy who like has been good and can be even better. And I think we'll see some of those starts here in the second half.
It's a great point. He's given up one home run all year, and it's a 345-foot homer that just
That's
got out and
crazy.
hugged the foul pole. Like he hasn't been pitching his best, and he's been great from the
Right.
counting numbers and overall like just statistics. So I think that really does put in perspective how good this guy could ultimately be.
Yeah.
He's still just 20 years old.
Definitely. That was a good list. We got through some
Yeah.
good guys. Definitely some big names, some lower name guys, and a lot of guys that we think are gonna really get going here.
Let us know in the YouTube comments. I know you're gonna have some names yourself that you think we
Of
should have
course.
mentioned or that you want to mention that are gonna finish the year really strong and why. And I'll try to get back and respond to some of those and share some thoughts as well. But yeah, let us know in the YouTube comments. I think that's all we got, right? We're gonna have another episode this week. I believe is it gonna be Yankees top prospects?
Yankees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yankees
Yankees.
top prospects out there probably before a couple of those guys get traded, and then next week probably Giants with a lot of other fun stuff as well. Maybe a prospect interview mixed in there as well. Thank you guys always for listening. If you could leave a rating, help us grow the show, that'd be awesome. Join the Discord. Link is in the episode description to get early access to our top 100 list. That is coming out on Monday. But if you want to see that over the weekend, I'm going to be sharing stuff. I'm already talking about what I'm doing right now and kind of going through it all with everybody in that prospects chat there, which has been really fun. And you would also already know about Kendry Rojas for your dynasty leagues if you're in the Discord. I was just telling everybody to pick him up as soon as possible. But thank you so much. Look forward to talking prospects with you tomorrow.